Imagine you did everything right. You went to school, you got the job, you saved. You watched your credit score like it owed you money. You skipped the vacations, drove the old car a little longer, made the coffee at home. And now you are sitting in front of a laptop, looking at a house listing in a perfectly average American suburb, not a mansion, not a penthouse, and the asking price reads $620,000. You stare at it for a second, and then you do the math. And the math does something to you. Because here's what nobody tells you up front. That number is not some outlier. It is not a listing from Malibu or Manhattan that accidentally showed up in your feed. It is approximately the median price of a home sold in the United States right now. The average American house. Half of all homes sold in this country cost more than that. Let that sit for a moment. So who exactly can afford it? That is the question. And the answer, when you actually work through the numbers, is not comforting. In fact, it raises something far more uncomfortable about what is happening to the American housing market, and whether the system is still designed for the people it was supposed to serve. Let us walk through it. There have always been housing cycles. Prices go up, prices cool down, rates rise, rates fall. That is normal. That is the rhythm. But something shifted after 2020, and by 2026, that shift has locked in hard. During the pandemic, mortgage rates dropped to historic lows. Some buyers locked in near 3%. The market went haywire. Prices surged. Bidding wars became standard. People were waiving inspections and writing personal letters to sellers just to get a shot. And then the Federal Reserve stepped in. Rates climbed fast, from near zero to over 7% in roughly 2 years. You would think that would cool prices dramatically. Rates double, affordability tanks, demand drops, prices fall. That is the logical chain. Demand did drop. But prices did not fall much. Not in most markets. Not enough to matter. Why? Because of something economists call the lock-in effect. Quietly one of the most powerful forces in housing right now. Here is how it works. Imagine you bought in 2021 at 3%. Your payment is manageable. You have equity. Life is fine. Now, if you sell and buy something new, you give up that 3% rate and take whatever the market offers today, still sitting between 6.5% and 7%, so you stay. Millions of homeowners are staying, not selling, not listing, locked into their cheap mortgages like they are handcuffed to the front door. The result? Inventory is historically low. Supply has not recovered. When supply is constrained and buyers are still competing, prices hold, or drift up. Which means that $620,000 median price is not going anywhere fast. Let us do this properly. You want to buy a $620,000 house. Standard practice says you put 20% down to avoid private mortgage insurance. That is $124,000. In cash, as a down payment, just to get to the starting line. Your remaining loan balance is $496,000. At 6.75% on a 30-year fixed, being generous with today's rates, your principal and interest payment is roughly $3,200 per month. But you are not done. Property taxes at 1.2% add about $620 a month. Homeowners insurance adds another $150 to $200. Maintenance. The standard estimate is 1% of the home's value per year, adds roughly $500 a month. And that number arrives in lumpy, unpredictable waves. A new roof, an HVAC unit, a water heater. True monthly cost of ownership, conservatively, somewhere between $4,000 and $4,500. Before utilities, before HOA fees, before furnishing the place. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. Mortgage lenders use the 28% rule. Your housing payment should not exceed 28% of your gross monthly income, before taxes, before deductions. If your housing cost is $4,200 a month, that means you need a gross monthly income of $15,000. $15,000 a month. Gross. That is $180,000 a year before taxes. Now pause. The median household income in the United States is approximately $80,000 a year. To comfortably afford the median-priced home, a household needs to earn more than double the national median income, more than double. There is a structural mechanism underneath all of this that rarely gets named directly. The traditional path to homeownership in America was a ladder. You started with a small, affordable starter home. Built equity, sold it, and used that equity as a down payment on the next step up. That ladder is broken. Starter homes, the entry-level end of the market, have appreciated faster in percentage terms than luxury properties over the past decade. The bottom rung has been priced out of reach for first-time buyers. And simultaneously, the people who own those starter homes have the lock-in problem. They are not selling. They cannot trade up without surrendering their low rate. So that inventory is frozen. The ladder is missing rungs at the bottom. And the people trying to get on are not getting younger. The average age of a first-time homebuyer has been creeping up. It is now in the mid to late 30s. A generation ago, it was closer to the late 20s. Not because younger buyers are irresponsible, but because the math stopped working when they were supposed to get on the ladder. And by the time many of them have saved enough to qualify, they are competing against people who already have equity from previous homes, investors paying cash, and buyers who got family help with the down payment. To be fair, the market is not identical everywhere. Prices in parts of the Midwest and the South, in smaller cities and rural markets, are meaningfully lower than the national median. A household earning $100,000 can find a home in certain markets. That is real. But here is what the more optimistic narrative consistently glosses over. Those affordable markets get discovered. The moment a mid-sized city becomes known as an alternative, capital flows in, investors follow, remote workers arrive, and prices climb. Boise, Austin, Nashville, Raleigh. The list of affordable alternatives keeps shrinking as each one gets bid up. And the people who most need affordable housing, workers in hospitals, schools, warehouses, service jobs, cannot always relocate. Their work is where their work is. The zip code is not negotiable. The escape valve works for a while, and then it does not. And when it closes, those workers are left competing for a shrinking inventory in a market that was never really built for their income bracket. Back to the down payment, $124,000. The median net worth of an American between 25 and 34 is approximately $45,000. That includes everything: retirement accounts, savings, the car. The typical young American does not have anywhere close to the required down payment, not even half. And saving toward it is harder than it sounds. Rent is high. Wages have grown, but not as fast as home prices. Student debt reduces what is available to save each month. A household earning $90,000 a year, renting at $2,000 a month in a mid-cost city with moderate loan payments and normal living expenses might save somewhere between $500 and $1,200 a month. At $1,000 a month, it takes over 10 years to save $124,000. 10 years of disciplined saving. While the target keeps moving. Because prices are not frozen while you save, the race is genuinely difficult to win from behind when the finish line keeps moving. There is something quietly absurd about all of this worth naming directly. The very policies designed to make housing more accessible have often made it more expensive. Low rates, designed to stimulate the economy, poured fuel on prices. Cheaper mortgages meant buyers could bid more, so they did, and prices rose to absorb the gain. Zoning restrictions, defended by existing homeowners as protecting neighborhood character, limit supply, and the people most likely to block new development are the ones who already own homes and benefit from restricted inventory. Tax policy has long favored owners over renters. The mortgage interest deduction, the capital gains exclusion on home sales, subsidies that primarily benefit people already on the property ladder. The system was built to help people who are already in, and it is remarkably good at that job. So who is actually buying at $620,000? Dual-income professional households. 2 earners, each clearing $80,000 or more. They are stretching. It is uncomfortable. But the math roughly works. People with family wealth. Inheritances, gifts, parents contributing to down payments. The bank of mom and dad is, quietly, one of the largest sources of first-time buyer funding in the country right now. Existing homeowners trading up, rolling over equity from a previous home, absorbing the higher rate because the down payment is already there. Cash buyers, investors, retirees, people who sold in high-cost markets and pocketed the difference. Notice who is largely absent from that list. The single earner at a respectable salary. The household near the national median. The renter who has been saving for years but started from nothing. The young family in a high-cost metro trying to put down roots. They are watching from the outside. And year after year, the math does not get easier for them. The goalposts keep moving. The down payment target drifts upward with prices. The rate environment does not return to what it was. And the window that felt like it might open never quite does. What happens when housing wealth concentrates in fewer hands? Geographic mobility declines. People stop moving to where opportunity is because they cannot afford to. Talent mismatches grow. Economic dynamism slows. Political fault lines deepen along homeownership lines. Homeowners benefit from rising prices. Renters are harmed by them. That divergence shapes local politics in ways that are becoming harder to ignore. Retirement security erodes for the generation that never gets on the ladder. The home was supposed to be the primary middle-class wealth vehicle. Sell it, downsize, tap the equity. For those who never buy, that asset does not exist. Social Security and financial savings carry the whole load. That is a harder math, and it is a math that a growing share of Americans are going to be running in their 60s and 70s whether they are prepared for it or not. And the multi-generational dimension compounds everything. Families who own or building equity their children will inherit. Families who rent are not. Over one generation, the gap is real. Over 2 or 3 generations, it becomes a chasm. Here is where I could offer a tidy solution. The policy fix. The reason it will work out. I am not going to do that, because there is no clean answer on the horizon. More supply helps, but takes years to build, and zoning reform moves at the pace of local politics, driven heavily by people who benefit from the status quo. Lower rates help buyers afford more, but also inflate prices, which swallows much of the affordability gain. The Fed cannot fix a supply problem. Wages are growing, but not as fast as prices in most markets. The gap has not meaningfully closed. And meaningful price correction, the kind that would make the median home affordable to the median household again, would require a decline that devastates the wealth of the roughly 66% of Americans who currently own. No political constituency is going to cheer for that. So, we are in an impasse. The $620,000 house is sitting there, ordinary. A 2-car garage, a yard, a neighborhood school. Exactly the kind of house that was supposed to be the reward for doing things right. And for a growing percentage of Americans, it is out of reach. Not because they failed, not because they were reckless, but because the math changed while they were busy playing by the rules. The real question is not who can afford a $620,000 house in 2026,